Good day to the participants of the 4th National Conference on Methodological Advances in Research. I am here to present my paper titled Development of Science Research Culture in Basic Education, a Theory Generation. I am Dr. Jojimar P. Sanchez from the College of Teacher Education of Cebu Normal University, presenting Introduction. Science Act of 1958 or the Republic Act 2067 states that it is the policy of the state to promote scientific and technological research and development, foster invention, and utilize scientific knowledge as an effective instrument for the promotion of national progress. Hence, science researches are vital in the present and in the future. Its vitality is reflected in the Philippine Development Plan, in the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and in the ASEAN integration, which lead to the important role of science and technology in national progress. This science research could be cascaded to different sectors of the society, and its promotion could be cascaded to in the government, second, in the private enterprise, and lastly, in the academe. And in the academe, the higher education is expected to do and implement science researches. And not only that, the academe has also a role in promoting science and technology in basic education. Hence, the elementary and high schools contribute to the promotion of science research through the conduct of SIPs. SIPs stand for Science Investigatory Projects, which are effective media to improve the conditions of our country via the minds and the products of students' outputs in science. And there are gaps identified in this study. The first one is there is a gray area on science culture in basic education. Another gap is that there is a dearth of scientific studies on science investigatory projects. And lastly, there's a lack of framework of science investigatory project instruction, as the education system only provides the guidelines on what to do during science and technology fairs. Ultimately, this particular study will answer this particular question: what builds an excellent SIP culture in basic education? Methods. The method primarily used in this study is axiomatic deductive theory development, and the steps were derived as prescribed by Dr. Roberto Padua in our personal communication last 2014. And there are 5 steps, and the first step is to choose the phenomenon of interest. Afterwards, there's a reading of literature, followed by brainstorming, formulating the axioms and propositions, and culminating in the construction of a particular theory. And this particular theory is generated by relating the propositions with one another. And since this is axiomatic deductive theory development, there will be a development of axioms and propositions which could be interrelated to produce the theory. So here are the axioms and propositions. First, science research culture is seen to be developed vis-a-vis the production of high-quality science. This high-quality science can be cascaded to the basic education through SIPs. Quality SIPs are recognized during science and technology fairs using quality science criteria. Due to these criteria, there are outputs that are superior than the outputs or SIPs from other schools. And based on these read literature concepts and ideas, axiom number 1 is formulated. Axiom number 1 is there is a variation in the performance of schools in the area of SIPs. And the corresponding proposition is there are attributes of schools that contribute to the high productivity of SIPs. And these attributes are inherent to the school or to the parts of the school which made them do quality SIPs, thereby starting to build a science research culture in basic education. Second, the ideas were essential components are needed for science research culture. The administration, teachers, and students have crucial role in fostering such culture. The Entel ISEF also highlights the importance of certain individuals with roles in SIPs such as the veterinarian, the review committee, among others. And lastly, material and non-material resources are also needed to conduct SIPs. And based on these ideas and concepts, the axiom number 2 is resources contribute to the productivity in basic education. And the corresponding proposition is there are human and non-human resources that contribute to the high SIP productivity in schools, including research infrastructure and research prioritization in these schools. Lastly, we have the following ideas. The conduct of SIPs is reflective of the goals of K-12 science curriculum. Science instruction involves acquiring knowledge and skills and inculcating values and attitudes. Due to this, science teaching is essential in solving community problems and improving conditions. Teachers will effectively implement science instruction when schools include the aims of science instruction. And the third axiom is quality of science instruction affects SIP productivity. And the proposition is science instruction can be designed to facilitate high productivity of science investigatory projects in schools. And a look into this science instruction could help schools on how to implement and teach SIPs in order to produce quality products. Joining these propositions together, we get this particular generated theory. We start with axiom number 1, which is in the attributes. Schools must possess certain attributes that foster SIP production. Second axiom is all about the resources. Schools must have human and non-human resources to enable production of quality outputs. And lastly, axiom number 3 is all about science instruction. Schools and their teachers should be able to implement science instruction vis-a-vis the SIP instruction. And this particular theory states that the attributes, resources, and science instruction are important aspects as schools capacitate students and teachers, produce the SIPs, and eventually disseminate these projects in science fairs. Hence, the name of the generated theory is Capacitation, Production, Dissemination Theory of the Development of Science Research Culture in Basic Education. To validate this particular theory, here are the following future directions. Number 1, you may conduct surveys and interviews. Surveys for proposition number 1 and interviews for proposition 2 and 3. And your possible respondents are the winning SIP teachers at the regional level. For example, in Region 7, you may select those first, second, and third place winners in the regional Science and Technology Fair, Science Investigatory Project Competition categories in Life Science, Physical Science, and Robotics and Intelligent Machines. And lastly, you may utilize multivariate and thematic analyses to analyze these rich set of data so that you can have a very well established theory because it is a validated theory. You may read the full paper at the Recoletos Multidisciplinary Research Journal. Thank you so much for listening and have a good day ahead.